Welcome back to Mainstream Current. I'm Future Drew, introducing the video that I filmed prior, and if you've been following along with the series where we're discussing November's ballot here in Maine, then you're familiar with what I'm going to say. If you're new here, I hope that by the end of this video I've earned your subscription, like, share, or comment, maybe all of the above. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video that was already pre-filmed. Pass Drew, take it away. So moving on, I want to get into question 3. And I'm scrolling down. Question 3 on Maine's 2024 ballot proposes a $10 million bond issue to restore historic buildings owned by governmental and nonprofit organizations. The bond requires a 25% local match from either private or nonprofit sources. This initiative is aimed at preserving Maine's historical architecture, which plays a significant role in the state's cultural heritage and community identity. What the bond would do. The bond would fund restoration projects for governmental and nonprofit organizations that own historic buildings. These funds would be distributed by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission and would be contingent on a local match, meaning for every dollar the state provides, the recipient must secure at least 25% from private or nonprofit sources. Up to 1% of the bond issue could be allocated for administrative costs. So on a question like this, I am more in favor of something like this because we are going to be preserving heritage, and there is cultural meaning when you look at a building and you know that your grandfather and their grandfather saw the same building that you did. There is a certain connectiveness. If we're constantly wiping the earth and starting anew and trying to be better and doing all these things. I mean, driving around the state of Maine, you have Lewiston, you have Waterville, and some of these old historic buildings are getting ripped down and they're getting replaced with some high-end hotels. And yes, they're beautiful, and eventually they will become part of our culture and part of our heritage, but there is something to be said in keeping what we already have. So there is cultural value. There's tourism boost. I mean, Maine is among the older states with civilization in it. Wow, that was not the way I meant to say that. With modern society in it. And I mean, you have places on the coast, Winslow, that go back to 1750s. Like, that's old. And so there is definitely community pride in that, and having a sense of community value. Like, hey, this is where we came from. This is where our ancestors came from. We're proud about this. This is who we are. There is something to be said about that. And by preserving these buildings, you have job creation and the property value increases. I mean, you have these old buildings. You can't get back old buildings. You can always make new buildings, but you can't get back the old buildings. And even if something doesn't represent modern understanding of history or society, I don't think we should be destroying statues and ideologies that belong to the past. Should we idolize them, and should we prop them up on pedestals and say that that's the way to go? No. Most of the time, as history goes, we're looking back and we're learning and we're growing and we're developing, and we need these markers to keep us in line. Otherwise, we're likely to repeat them because we don't know the past. And so there's some cons, obviously. I mean, state debt, there's borrowing costs, just like in the previous question that I was talking about. But to be honest, most of the cons against this are just if you don't have any sense of community, any sense of belonging. I mean, you go out west and you go out to the Oklahoma, Nebraska, and places that are newer and they're developing and they're building from the middle outwards because they have no stopping them. They have no restrictions geographically. Like in Boston in Portland. I mean, you can only get as big as you can get before you have to start ripping old things down and putting new things up. So, I mean, you just have this expanse of new and new and new. And there's something lost in that. I like being able to look at buildings and remember that I took a photo with my grandfather in front of that, or remember doing those things, and we should have that historically. And this video is getting on. I have the blinder in my way, so I can't see the time. But these things are important, and so we need to talk about them and just get more information about them, and you can skip through this video to where you find is most relevant to you. So, the debate over question 3 reflects broader discussions about the role of state funding in preserving cultural heritage versus addressing other priorities. Proponents emphasize the need to protect and celebrate Maine's history, while opponents raise concerns about debt and whether such investments should prioritize over more immediate concerns like infrastructure, healthcare, or education. Conclusion. Question 3 represents an opportunity for Maine to invest in the preservation of its historic buildings, but the initiative comes with financial trade-offs and challenges in equitable distribution. Voters will need to balance the potential long-term cultural and economic benefits of preserving Maine's heritage with the short-term costs of increasing state debt and ensuring that all regions and communities benefit from the funding. So that's the end of question 3. And now that I'm digging into this, I think that instead of doing one video of all these questions, I'm actually going to separate it and do a video for each of these questions to offer up more of an understanding for each of them. So even though I'm recording these all at the same time, I am going to split them up and offer some more introspective as the video goes along and as I do more research. So before I get into question 3, I'm going to take a question 4. I'm going to take a quick break. Here on YouTube, actually, anytime you're not face-to-face, when you don't have a deep personal connection with someone, it's easy to misunderstand them on the internet. Whether that's through social media, text, images, or videos like this one. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea of me. I realize that there are times when we need to spend money, and I love history. I am a history buff, and I think it's important to maintain history, to uphold it. Sometimes even when it's irreverent now, but it resembled something from the past. And I think that we should make society more a museum of that, so we can see where we've come, so we don't forget, so we can continue to grow. And I've already gotten into all of that, but I want to thank you guys for sticking around, for watching these videos, for commenting. All of that is deeply appreciated. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I am truly grateful for each and every one of you that tunes in for all of these videos. So you already know what I'm going to say. Go ahead and do those good things, and until next time, this has been Drew Hoagland with Mainstream Current.
Ready? Fight!